he is moving like a super middleweight in the heavyweight division, which is absolutely frightening.
He does have the potential to be even bigger than Anthony Joshua for sure.
How he performs is our biggest star he's going to become.
But people are saying if he goes in there, he takes the dig from Dillian, he shows he can take a dig, then that's the question answered. That's the end of the questions. We don't need any more questions. Anoint him.
Dillian's of a fighting mentality.
Yep.
He's a real fighting man. He's a real fight man. He will go out on his shield.
And if he can derail that train, then he'll get himself back at that top table and talking about some big fights. From an Adelaide point of view, what an opportunity.
I fancy Eubank still.
Do you?
I do.
Do I understand why we're here? Of course I understand
Money.
why we're here.
Yeah.
It's dollars. That's
Money,
what we're
yeah.
here for. Absolutely. He spent an awful lot of time in hospital off the back end of this, right? I'm only just speaking of me as a human being. There wouldn't be a price on earth for me to be able to sell that again.
It turned into this big nostalgia trip, and all of a sudden everyone bought into it.
People-
nostalgia
sells
and I get it, absolutely. Otherwise, no one would be watching Oasis with Jews. We'd all be looking at something else now, right? Welcome to episode 133 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan. Spencer Oliver is in Saudi Arabia, and we'll have the pleasure, mixed pleasure, of him joining us during the course of the show. But joining us in the studio is one of the best names in boxing, Mark Tibbs, and also one of my favourite observers and commentators and pundits, Adam Catterall. Nice to see you, boys.
Nice to see you, mate.
Nice to see you, Shalom.
Big fight this weekend. Mosesitauma versus Dillian Whyte. This is a big fight for both fighters, Adam, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a big fight for the division as well, because you've got, obviously, the rising star, the hottest prospect, which everybody seems to be incredibly impressed with regarding the eye test, and he's got an opportunity at the weekend to get a more commercial name on his resume. And in the other corner, obviously from a Dillian point of view, he's got the opportunity to derail that train. And if he can derail that train, then he'll get himself back at that top table and talking about some big fights. So yeah, I think on paper the matchmaking of this fight is absolutely fantastic, and I think the fans are in for a bit of a treat.
Are you surprised, Mark? I mean, have you spoken to Dillian recently?
Well, we touched base a couple of days ago, I think, a week ago.
Are you surprised he's taken this fight? I mean, what's the thinking? I mean, we're going to talk about Dillian later on in the show, but are you surprised in principle that he took this fight on, given what most people think Mosesitauma is doing to everybody, and the reasons why someone would be paired against him is predominantly for Moses' benefit?
Yes, I really was surprised, to tell the truth, at first. And I never thought Dillian would take such a fight. But I had to give it another thought, that he's a fighting man, Dillian, and he's a man of a wealth of experience. He's an old dog, but it's still a dangerous fight. You know, Moses, the young lion, very articulate and technician in his work. He's got power, and he's got life in his legs. And I'm not sure. Dillian may be a wise old dog, and he is. Not maybe, he's a wise old dog.
Sure.
Trust me. And I think he might find it difficult to get mid-range and drag the young lion into deep waters.
Because there's a school of thought that there's a possibility that Dillian could old man Mosesitauma, but when you look at Moses, and there's so much noise being made around him, and every opportunity people get is that they get to write his future, which is you're the future of the heavyweight division, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, right? So the poor kid doesn't even get a chance to land on his feet before everyone's forecasting his future. But how highly, when you look at Marius Wach, right, he's been brought in for various fighters at various stages in their career, and he's been beaten by most of them, right? So people put a lot of credibility behind the fact that he blasted out Marius Wach. Dempsey McKean gets his currency because he went the full distance with Philip Hrgovic, right? Mike Balogun, well, I don't know what we make of that particular outcome. He goes in and does the job. But when we look at Moses now, how highly can we rate him based upon what we've seen, given I've just listed off some of the opposition, and I'm not trying to diminish him, I'm excited by Moses like everyone else is. But how highly can we rate Moses based upon what the eye test has shown us so far?
And that's the key word that you just used there, eye test. Mark's far more qualified than me to obviously talk about the eye test of fighters over the years, because you've watched countless, mate. Now, for me watching him, he is moving like a super middleweight in the heavyweight division, which is absolutely frightening. His feet are beautifully placed, his hand speed is electric, and the way that he's setting things up and firing those shots, it's beautiful to watch.
Listen, this is the perfect fight for Moses. Perfect. He's got a guy opposite him, with, as I said before, with a wealth of experience. He's got old man tricks up his sleeve. He's a real proper big man heavyweight, and Moses, in order for Moses to grow He's only had 12 fights, Moses. You get me? So in order for Moses to grow, he needs mentality of the Dillian Whytes in front of him. The mentality. It's all about mentality.
Being what? What do you mean by that?
Well, when Moses throws and connects, the mentality from Dillian is going to be different to what Moses had felt before, unless he switches him off.
Right.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Right.
Then we will see, boxing people can see whether Moses is questioning himself and his work.
We want to see that, though, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
We want to see him think his way through the problem.
We want to see that, and we have to see that.
So are we saying that the mentality that Dillian Whyte, that we perceive Dillian Whyte to have had, which is an elite fighter that was mandatory for the world title for 2 or 3 years, it's fought at the best level. When we talk about who he's fought previously, which is Maris Wack, that was brought in to do certain jobs for people and had a certain reputation, Dempsey McKean. So we're saying that Dillian Whyte's mentality, we perceive it to be, is of a championship fighter that's fought at those levels. But that's assuming that we've got the same Dillian Whyte in the ring that we had 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I believe, sorry, Adam.
No, carry on.
I believe, and I hope I'm wrong, because I've got a lot of love for Dillian, I believe Dillian Whyte is going to question himself when and if he gets gets hit by Moses. So, it's a great fight.
When the fight was made, and I love your thoughts on it, when the fight was made, I genuinely thought that it was a cash out. I thought, he's obviously getting weighed in a few quid, Dillian, and I thought, right.
And he is, because Frank made the point the other day of saying he is.
Right, so I thought, OK, the last 3 fights, with all due respect, he's looked a little bit slow, a little bit like he couldn't be bothered off the back of the Tyson Fury defeat. So I was worried that it was going to be a cash-out scenario. Looking at him last week with you guys, the shape that he's in, the way that he's talking very matter-of-fact. He knows what the challenge is ahead of him. He seems to have taken it incredibly seriously, which gets me excited about the fight on Saturday. And Mark can throw light on this. Let's cast our minds back to the Joseph... I know it's a long time ago, but to the Joseph Parker fight. Joseph Parker had quicker hands. He had better feet than Dillian. In the early parts of that fight, he was being asked some serious questions. Dillian outdogged him. And we're talking Joseph Parker. Look where he's at right now.
That's the dog we need. That's the energy and the dog and the mentality we need, or Dillian needs, in order to get through and start to dominate Moses and
break his heart. He needs to break his heart.
But the language that Dillian's using is very contrite language in terms of, I don't know whether he's playing a game. You know the personality. It might be a while ago that you worked together, but people evolve. They don't fundamentally change, do they?
No.
He talks in a language, and I saw it in the Tyson Fury press conference. When the moment Dillian walked into that press conference at Wembley Stadium, I knew he was going to lose that fight. I probably knew it anyway because of the levels of fighter. But even more so because Dillian was not in that press conference. He was nowhere near the sort of edge that I expected to hear from him. It was the Tyson Fury show. And he's now speaking about mosesitauma in a way. This is Superman. This kid's superstar. Is that a game that he's playing with mosesitauma, or is this a role that he's inhabiting? Or is this where Dillian thinks he is now?
I believe he's connecting with the people, but also trying to climb in the head of Moses. I mean, he's putting him up on an even bigger pedestal, and if all else fails, he's got to beat against Superman.
Is that what you think he's doing?
No,
because that doesn't exhibit the elite mentality that you've just told me he brings into the ring.
I beg your pardon. I put that across, not in the right way. But I believe, as I said before, Dillian's of a fighting mentality. He's a real fighting man. He will go out on his shield. But I hope and I pray he does it. I think...
So do I, because A, it's a legacy for Dillian Whyte in terms of if he gets blasted out in 15 seconds or 2 rounds by mosesitauma. A, we are disappointed for Dillian Whyte in terms of where he was at that stage in his career. And B, I don't think we learned very much about Moses, which in part is some of the intrigue. Spencer joins us from Saudi. Spencer, you've just done an interview with Dillian Whyte, haven't you? And we're speaking to him. What's he have to say for himself?
Yeah, if anything, I felt that he felt maybe a little bit hard done by. He seemed slightly emotional as well, if I'm totally honest, because he does recognise that people have been putting putting Mosesitauma as a huge favourite going into this one. And he said he's worked hard all his life and he's always been the underdog and he's always had his back up against the wall. So we're the experts. I think he was referring to myself, you, Simon, Adam Catterall, and the other people that are talking about saying we're the experts, so you know who's going to win and whatnot. So I sort of threw the question back at him and said, well, you know what you're going to do in the ring. You look in great shape. So do you feed off that sort of information? He said, not really. But I think the overall feeling was that maybe he feels that he's being a little bit victimised at the moment because everybody saying that he is this huge underdog.
But he is, though, isn't he? Spence, coming into this fight, given where he's at currently in his career and the way that Moses has been taking care of everybody, you can understand why the bookies have Moses the favourite going into this.
Absolutely. That's boxing, isn't it? It's the passing of the baton. It's about timings of everything. And one thing that Frank Warren is great at is the calculated gamble on when he should put his fighters in at a certain time. Dillian Whyte has that name. People respect him within the sport. He's been there, seen it, done it. You go, Mosesitauma was only 20 years of age. Can you believe it? Dillian Whyte's boy is 24 years of age. Mosesitauma, when Dillian Whyte turned professional back in 2011, Mosesitauma was 6 years of age. When he boxed AJ at 2015 for the British and Commonwealth titles, Moses was only 10. When you look at that, you go Dillian now finding himself as a big underdog. Moses should, be a big favourite, but it's always that not knowing whether this is another massive step up.
Spence, I want to pick up on some other things that Dillian may or may not have said to you in a moment, but I want to go to some stuff that Moses said to us a while ago when he was last on the show about managing expectation. You must have a view of what level you're at now.
If you want my honest opinion, I
do.
think if my skill set, if you're talking about my ring IQ and what I display in the ring, I feel like I am the best in the world, but I haven't displayed the later rounds. That's all what I kind of want to get ticked off. So my next opponent or opponents this year, we're just looking at fights to kind of get me into that later round, because I feel like with Usyk, I feel like I've got a better skill set than him, but I feel like towards the later rounds, he'll just outdo me because I've never been in that sort of fight.
So when you listen to that, boys, I mean, what do you make of Moses and what he's saying? I mean, he makes an observation about he thinks he's the best in the world. And of course, that's confidence and maybe the impetuosity of youth. But when you listen to him, what's your takeaway from him?
Yeah, well, he's speaking sense. He knows he's got to have stiffer opposition and to take him into the later rounds. And so I think he's speaking very, very sensible there, for sure.
I like the kid's mentality, man.
Yeah.
I love the way that he talks.
Very stoic, isn't he?
Yeah, but there's
calm.
not... There's I mean, people might throw at it that him making them comparisons to Usyk. I think he has to. Usyk's the top guy. He's the king of the division, isn't he? Yeah. And that's the person that you've got to be comparing yourself to. So if he's making that reference, then he's obviously got that inner confidence within himself. And it is confidence. It's not an arrogance thing. He's got to believe those.
Of course.
Got to believe those things.
Yeah. He's a lovely kid.
He comes across that way.
A couple of years ago, he came up to our gym. And I had a couple of cruisers and an heavyweight there. And when I said who's coming up, he wanted to look for 6 rounds. All my little lot, they all crumbled. but listen, I said, oh yeah, boys, they've done 2 rounds with him each. And he's a quality. Francis brought him up, Francis Warren. Yeah. He is, I knew back then, special.
Solid kid, yeah.
Special, solid. Yeah. And he speaks very, very well.
Very calm, very balanced.
Well.
I mean, because he's listening to all the background noise. He's listening to every time he walks into a room, whichever hysterical presenter is that telling him he's going to be the next world champion. He listens to it, doesn't take much notice of it, says what he wants to say and leaves, which I think is the best way to go.
Yeah.
I tell you, we had on the show a few weeks ago was Duke McKenzie. Now, obviously, Duke's a freeweight world champion. We know he knows what he's talking about. Yes. But he believes there's some significant areas in which Moses can improve. Let's have a listen to what Duke had to say.
If I'm going to elaborate with Mosesitauma and say what I think he's doing right and what he's doing wrong, the one thing I think he does wrong, which he absolutely telegraphs, see when he starts to pour with his right hand, he's trying to set up the backhand, and he pours with his right hand, right, and leaves it out there. To somebody like Dillian Whyte, that's an invitation to say, hit me on the chin. You can't... I wouldn't do it if I was him, because that jab's got to be like ramrod. He's got to be sticking it in his face and making sure that he knows what time it is. I don't think he won't be allowed that luxury to go and, you know, they call it jousting or fencing or whatever they want to call it, when he sticks the right hand out and he starts doing all that sort of thing. Because Dillian Whyte will knock it out of the way and put a shot straight on him. So he's got to cut that out. I'd like to see a lot more head movement from Moses Itauma, because he doesn't move his head at all. Everything's based on power and reflex.
Mark, when you listen to that as a trainer, I mean, do you think Duke's on the money? Do you think that he's making valid points, or do you think that ultimately there's some stuff there that Moses can benefit from, but it's not quite as detailed as it needs to be, or it's not as accurate as it could be?
Duke's a fighting man, a boxing man. It's in his blood. But I understand what Moses is doing. He's measuring. If he paws or overreaches with a jab, anyone, he's asking for trouble. He's going to get countered. He's going to get countered by Dillian. He's running on everything. But I've not seen Moses myself overreach or pour any jabs with respect to Duke. But you know, you have to measure and you have to you know, change heights with that lead hand in order to get what you want off and buy time and to have a look. So that's my view on it. But yeah,
I think the really interesting thing that Duke just said there was the reflexes. This kid's reactions are absolutely extraordinary. Look at his last knockout. He was going backwards.
Is that because the level of fighter that he's at amplifies his reactions and make him look better?
Well,
maybe.
Well, yeah, maybe, exactly. Because, like, as he goes along, let's remind ourselves he's had 12 professional fights.
Yep.
Yeah, 12 professional fights. And I like the fact
Is that a big thing in the heavyweights, though? Because you get Vasily Lomachenko that had 12 professional fights and he's a world title winner.
In 3 weight divisions, yeah.
In 3 weight divisions. Yeah. So is it a unique thing to say that about the heavyweights? He's only had 12 fights. When we say it in other divisions and we're talking about people that won a world title already.
I think it's more on his age. He's 20 years of age, isn't he? You know what I mean? And he hasn't had that massive, extensive amateur... I mean, we're talking about Lomachenko, who had 300 fights as an amateur, you know?
That's what I was going to say that. But no, he's 20 years of age. And what are we talking about now? Sorry.
We're talking about the level that he's at and the experience that he's got, and the fact that you mentioned he's only had 12 fights and we mustn't get carried away with it, and Duke's observations about his technical abilities and the things he needs to improve upon.
Yeah.
And then we talked about his reactions and how quick his reactions were. And I threw the question, was that based upon the opposition? And that's how we got into, forget it, he's only had 12 fights. And I was saying, is that unique to the heavyweights? That sort of argument.
Well, listen, I think Dillian Whyte's his first test.
Yep.
His first test, that's for sure. And we'll see on Saturday night. We'll see what he's got to do. It's all about the performance on the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it as simple to say at this stage with Moses and what we've seen that the one thing we haven't seen is him getting whacked on the chin, and if we see him getting whacked on the chin and his response to that, we will have a better view of him. Is it as simplistic as to say that? Because, OK, if he takes a shot, then great, we know that's another question answered, right? But it isn't the only questions that must reverberate around Moses, because it seems to me that people are saying, if he goes in there, he takes a dig from Dillian, he shows he can take a dig, then that's the question answered. That's the end of the questions. We don't need any more questions. Anoint him.
Well, listen, it's ongoing. Boxing is ongoing, and boxing is ongoing. You never stop learning. And Frank Warren is bringing Moses along in the right way. In the beginning, Moses wanted to be world champion at 20 years of age. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that was a lot of what the media did that for him, didn't they? The media ran around going, he's got to beat Mike Tyson's record. He's got to beat Mike Tyson's record.
Right. But it made me smile when I saw Moses' reaction, because he was pretty eager to do that. And but it's lovely to watch him. Watch now that someone like Dillian Whyte, he's fighting in his 12th fight. You know.
The thing is, his job's to not get hit.
Absolutely.
You know, and I know that we're all crying out, I want to see what he looks like.
He's going to get hit at some point, isn't he?
Yeah, when he comes up against, you know.
He's going to get hit at some point, and I got a little fight myself, Giorgio Visioli. No one's hit him. O'Hara Davis caught him with a lovely backhand at the beginning. It was nice for me as his coach to see how he reacted. Now I'm sure Ben Davison's, seen him. He can't dodge every shot in it, So he's going to get hit from time to time. So that's how you build a Moses Itauma and a Giorgio Visioli. They've got to be built in the gym.
Yeah,
in the gym.
Listen, he's just said it. Mark knows his onions, doesn't he? You know
of course
what I mean? He will, at this moment in time, he will 100% have had harder spars than he has had fights. There's no doubt about that.
Well, let's listen to somebody else who knows their onions as well, which is Dillian Whyte's trainer, Buddy McGirt, and what he had to say the other day on talkSPORT.
I think I saw that you said you haven't seen Moses box before and you don't watch your opponent's box. But I don't believe you, buddy. I don't believe you.
I swear to you. I will not lie to you.
Why? Why not? Because I understand when fighters say that, but I've never heard a trainer say it before.
Because, okay, how can I gotta try to find a nice way to put this.
Without swearing.
No, it's not even the swearing part. Because of when someone goes to war, right? Sometimes you don't have time to study your enemy, correct?
Correct.
So you gotta make adjustments. When Hannibal conquered Europe, how did they expect Hannibal to get from Africa?
Yeah, but
They expected him to come across on the boats, correct?
Yep.
What did Hannibal do? He fooled their ass. He came through the Alps. They didn't prepare for that. So I'm a believer that if you prepare for any and everything, when you come out, you make the adjustments as the fight go along.
Spence, seeing as you've been sat there doing bugger all for the last 5 minutes, we can ask you the question what you make of what Buddy McGirt said there.
I think it's a strange assessment for a trainer to say that he's not studied the opponent. He was talking about, when you go to war, you don't have time to study your opponent. Well, guess what? He has time to study his opponent before they go to war. So surely you would use that as your advantage. Buddy McGirt is a former great fighter and a great trainer as well. But I think he's made a huge mistake there. Now, I asked Dillian that in an interview that I just done with him. Said, look, Buddy said he hadn't studied him, and you haven't watched him as well. He said, no, I've watched him. I've watched a lot of him. I know exactly what I'm going into. So don't worry, I think the eyeballs are definitely on there. Is it mind games that Buddy was just saying that, showing mosesitauma no respects? Because I'm sure Buddy McGirt would have studied it. And I think Mark Tibbs, who you got in the studio there, could agree with me that, I think that any trainer that doesn't study his fighter's opponent is a stupid thing to do. When we're talking about mosesitauma, the next superstar of the heavyweight division, the kid that has been dealing with everyone, and the sparring session stories that come out from when he was a 15-year-old kid, I would study him if I was looking after Dillian Whyte, that's for sure.
I believe. Can I interrupt?
Go on, yeah.
I believe. See, Buddy McGirt has been a great fighter. He's been around the best, yeah, and he's a great trainer too. But someone of his vast amount of experience, yeah, he probably don't have to study Moses, but he's run his eyes over him. Mm-hmm. Trust me on that. Yeah,
I would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Yes, 100%. And I believe, I think you've got to let your fighter know that. I would.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a strange message that you're passing. Spence, when you were talking to Dillian, did you ask him why he took this fight? Because I don't seem to have it in my mindset as to any vantage point on what Dillian took this fight for. Because we're all surmising that he's, perhaps once Adam said at the beginning of the show that he might be taking it for a cash out. Did you touch upon the subject as to why you're taking this fight, Dillian?
I actually did, and I got a bizarre answer actually, because I actually asked him the question: are you taking this fight because of the opportunity you get? Yes, he's a young kid coming through, but he's WBO #1 ranked. That puts him, if he wins this fight, puts Dillian in WBO #1. And with what's going on right now, Joseph Parker, obviously the interim champion, and if Alexander Usyk decides to relinquish that title, you could get Joseph Parker versus the #1 spot, which would be Dillian Whyte if he wins, for the world title. And he looked confused and said, I didn't even know that position was up for grabs. He said, no, I just took this fight because I saw it as the opportunity. So I don't know whether that's the payday or what, but he just said he never shied away from any fight. But I thought that they would have known, surely, that the WBO #1 spot was on the line as well. So it puts him straight back in the mix.
Strange answer, Adam.
That just adds to what I said earlier on then. The initial thought was, what was the bottom line on the dollars?
Yeah.
If the money was good, sound, I'll jump in there. And
but he does.
We all know he's a fighting man, so he'll fight anybody.
But he does look in great shape. I mean, I remember him when he got knocked out by Povetkin during COVID, and he came back, and I thought he was in a different condition there, and he dealt with Povetkin, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did.
What does this tell you by the nature of the shape that he's in?
I think he, like what Mark says, right? He, off the back of the Tyson Fury defeat, I don't know Dillian personally. Mark maybe can shed a little bit of light on this, but off the back of the Tyson Fury defeat, I think he was hurt by that mentally, and maybe he got to the top of the mountain. He'd been interim for such a long period of time and fallen short. And now, the 3 fights off the back of that, I personally thought he looked a little bit slow, that he maybe was just plodding his way through the division a touch. And I anticipated when this fight was made that I might get to see that exact same version of Dillian Whyte coming in on Saturday night. This version of him looks absolutely bang up. He's taking it seriously. He's been in his training camp. Yeah, he's got himself in great shape. He looks absolutely bang up for it. And Mark will tell you, this is a proper fighting man. He is prepared to go out on his shield on Saturday night in the hope of trying to win the fight, of which, from a fight fan's point of view, is exactly what you want from your fighter.
Yeah, I feel that, as I say, we touched base very briefly while I was in America. We sent each other a couple of messages, and I was really made up for how I saw him. Yeah. I saw his face beaming, healthy, his weight, and all of that, and I was, I got behind him in myself, if you know what I'm saying. And not that I haven't before, but love to see him do it. But it's just
you want the best version of him in the fight, don't you? That's what you want.
We want to see a fresher Dillian Whyte, a fresher energy, more energy, a little bit more energy.
There'll be nothing better in this fight if Moses comes out, does Moses, pings him for 2 or 3 rounds, and then you stand up for the 4th round, and he's taking a bit of punishment, Dillian, but he's still there. Yeah. And he's like, right, come on then, we're having a fight, man. Let's go.
Yeah, he'll be there.
I mean, it's a reasonable assumption to say that Dillian might have had some of his best performances whilst working with you. So why did you two guys split?
To be fair, Simon, what happened was at the time, the COVID come in, and COVID come in and frightened the life out of me and my family. Right. To be fair, didn't know what it was. Pandemic, and then it took me a little while to evaluate, and I knew no promoter was putting shows on anywhere in the world, not in our world anyway. So I needed to be comfortable because Dillian shot off to Portugal to train. Yep. We had a meeting, and it all happened a little bit fast. And shows was on, because that particular fight with Povetkin, the first one, was happening in Manchester. Yeah. And we done the press conference for it. And we was getting ready for it. And I did sense that Dillian and the people around him underestimated Povetkin. And I didn't like that a little bit. And I would have got into Dillian as the camp would have progressed. But COVID come and disrupted everything. And Dillian flew off to Portugal. We had a meeting, and I was going out there with him, and I went there a couple of times. And unfortunately, me and Dillian got on very, very well. We done hours and hours and hours together in an old shed outside Loughborough University. Before he got to pay-per-view, then they give us a gym in the university. So I had some. Is
it a regret of yours that you didn't get to work with him more?
Well,
and maybe be involved in the fight that you had with Fury?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I was disappointed, frustrated as well, at the same time. But it is what it is, and it is what it is.
And life goes on, doesn't it?
I had to make sure I had got a young son.
Priorities, absolutely, got it. Spence, before I end this section, just throw back to you about Moses Itauma. I mean, you've got your head permanently buried up AJ's Harris, but in real terms, can you see a situation where Moses becomes such a big star that he eclipses someone like Anthony Joshua, or eclipses the things that Anthony Joshua has done?
Absolutely. I mean, this kid, he has superstar status. There's no getting away from that. Like Mark said there, the rumours that come out of the gym. Since he was a young man, boxing all the top pros at the time, world champions at the time as well. You always knew that this kid was going to be a superstar. And I think that, he does have the potential to be even bigger than Anthony Joshua, for sure. He's got that southpaw style, and he's taking people out. There's similarities of a young Mike Tyson when he's around as well. And you just look at that and you go, this kid has something. You sort of you gravitate towards him when you're around him. I like the honesty about the guy. I like the way that he manages his own pressure as well by trying to take that away from him, saying that he doesn't listen to all the noise, etc., etc. He's a very smart kid, because for a 20-year-old, there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and he manages that very well by diffusing certain things. But what he does in the ring is quite exceptional, and he could be even bigger than Anthony Joshua.
I mean...
It's hard, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I was going to ask you because
commercial
well,
behemoth.
that's the point I was going to make, because there's two parts of the equation that you judge it by. You judge it by the achievements in the ring, and then you judge it by the personality that became even bigger. The Anthony Joshua story is not just about winning 2 world titles. It's about the personality, and it's about the people's perception of him. Do you see the same opportunities for Moses? Different personality, different outlook on life. Yeah. But notwithstanding that, do you see, A, that he can eclipse Anthony in the ring, and B, match him for commercial draw as the result of his achievements?
I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think I'm in the same ballpark as you. I think regarding achievements in the ring, yes, I think he can. I mean, listen, Anthony was Olympic gold medal and 2-time unified champion. He's done all right.
Oh, he's done all right, yeah.
So, you know, for him to do that, I think would be big, and I think Moses has absolutely all the talent in the world to be able to do that, maybe unify the division and become undisputed and do all the things that Usyk is currently doing. Regarding the commercial aspect of that, I mean, people bought into the AJ story, which is a kid that came to boxing late in
2012 Olympics.
All that, you know what I mean? They bought into that, and then he becomes, and it was just the right timing of where Anthony's at right now. Can Moses do it? Yeah, I think he's still a young man. There's going to be more personality that comes out from him. We're going to learn a little bit more about him, and who knows, that could grow. But commercially, that's going to be a very difficult thing because AJ's right up there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. But listen, I think it's unfair to make comparisons.
Yeah.
And I think Moses can. His performances, you know, how he performs is our biggest star he's going to become.
Yep.
Yeah. And
he needs dance partners as well, doesn't he?
He needs dance partners as well. But listen, what if he deals with Usyk? What if he deals with Usyk? And he's dealt with all our guys, including AJ and, you know, all of our English guys. So let's hope, fingers crossed.
Absolutely right. Could be a fascinating journey. And it's great to have another British heavyweight that's going to be so meaningful. Yet again, we've got another good undercard, and I'm really motivated by this undercard because I think there's some great fights on this, and I'm really interested, for a variety of reasons, to see the David Adelaide fight against Hrgovic. What's your take on that, Adam?
Well, I'll be honest. When it was first announced, I actually thought it was a printing error on the running order, because I thought we were going down the avenue of David Adelaide fighting Jamie TKV again when it was ordered by the British Boxing Board of Control, and there's still a cloud over the result of that first fight. But from an Adelaide point of view, what an opportunity. Unbelievable opportunity. I think, you know, this is a lad that obviously had a bump in the road against Wardley. He's made some big fundamental changes, changing to Adam Booth. I think it's working for him. He's looked very good. We're now going to get maybe the next...
Well, you say that. I mean, I like David, but what, against Solomon Duckleys? Is that what you say he looked good at?
Listen, he was at the time, if you think, when that fight was being made, he was a top prospect.
Solomon Dakers. He was supposed to correct my pronunciation.
Sorry. I'll just let it slide. It's your show, mate. But he was a top prospect, and David Adelaide dealt with him incredibly well, you know. And there's a lot to get excited about with David Adelaide, because he's a raw guy, you know. And I think Adam Booth getting his hands on him, he's obviously going to try and shape him like a David Hay.
I think that's a big factor. Yeah. Spence, I saw you there, but I don't know what the you were wearing, by the way, in the session that I saw you. But what have you seen?
The big boots.
David?
Yeah, the big boots.
What, are you talking about those boots I borrowed from you, Simon? What are you talking about?
40 league boots, which ones I borrowed off Elton John,
They were the boots, actually, that Adam Booth wore when David Hay was boxing Valuev for the World Heavyweight title. Do you remember the 7'2" giant? And they were the boots that he wore there. And he said, I'll just give them a go, Spence. I did ask him the story where those boots actually come from. I won't go into that now because that's a different show, boys.
Lovely.
But there you go. Yeah, but it was good working down. It was good working down the gym with David Adelaide. You know what? He has improved under the watchful eye of Adam Booth for sure. They've been working on certain things, and they just see it as the opportunity. Mark was right in what he said there. Look, you know, it's all about opportunity right now. David Adelaide's done his apprenticeship. He come through that fight, that controversial fight last time out with Jamie TKV. He got the victory in the 6th round. You know, it looked like the fight was maybe not going his way. Things weren't like working to his advantage. And you go, do you go back into that rematch, or you take this opportunity against a world-ranked heavyweight and put your name right up there in the mix? I mean, Hrgovic has not looked particularly great. He lost to, obviously, Daniel Dubois in 8 rounds. And since then, he won that fight against Joe Joyce, but didn't really, you know, set the world on fire. And they see it as a great opportunity. They think they've been working on things in the gym. And one thing he can do, Adelaide, is whack 13 of his 14 inside the distance. And he's going to go out there and give it his all. It's a great fight, that one. I like it.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a big step up there, Mark, isn't it?
It is a step up, but it's about right on Hrgovic's form, and but I fancy Hrgovic because the pedigree, but I do like the partnership. Adam said with Adam
Booth,
yeah, 100%. So I like that, and but I fancy Hrgovic still.
Do you?
I do.
Right. So would you, if you, that's thrown me off my thought process now, because I was going to say to you, would you have taken that fight if you were Adam Booth? Because Adam Booth, the thing that Adam Booth keeps saying to me is, this kid's got it all. Now, I need to see him show it to me, because but the Hrgovic situation, I was offered Jamie TKV, we thought we'd go down that route, and they put Hrgovic in there, and I thought, no, hang on a second, I can go to the Autoglass Cup final, or I can go to the FA Cup final, where I'll take the FA Cup final, thanks very much. And if my boy is going to do what I think he's going to do, then this is the sort of opposition you need to do it against. And I think Adam Booth's mentality is of a key function in this equation. But would you have taken this fight if you were David's trainer? Seemingly not, based on what you said.
Adam knows what he's doing but you know, I admire Adam's work, and he's working with Adelaide, so he knows what he's working with. He's bringing them along. The TKV fight fell through, and that presented itself. So yeah. And Hrgovic's form is not brilliant, but the fight's about right. The fight's about right, but I just like Hrgovic. He's upright, he's long, and he's seasoned. He's seasoned.
I've never really been sold on Hrgovic, I'll be dead honest.
I was about to say that. Is Hrgovic a figment of our imagination because of Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, listen, he was a wonderful amateur, and if you remember, just before he fought Zhang, his father sadly passed away, and I genuinely believe that changed a lot of just the way that he is and the way that he thinks. And personally, I thought he lost the Zhang fight. He ends up getting the decision there. And every time I've watched him, I've just been waiting for something, and it's just not been there. Obviously, Daniel dealt with him really, really well. So I can understand rolling the dice with this, because when you look at all the top heavyweights, there's a lot of dangerous guys there. Is Hrgovic dangerous? Of course he's dangerous, but there's just something missing for me. So from an Adelaide point of view, if you carry that whack, and the coach in Adam Booth believes that he's made the right development since a year or 2 years ago, this puts him in an unbelievable position.
Has he got nothing to lose then?
I don't think he has.
Depends on the manner. If he were to lose, the manner in which he lost could always change the direction of travel. But if he goes in and puts a credible performance up, he becomes a noble loser. He goes into with due respect, to the anti-yard territory of getting credibility against the opposition rather than winning the fights.
Yeah, maybe. But the stature of a Hrgovic with the majority of the boxing public kind of lends to what you're saying there. I don't think he's got anything to lose whatsoever. And if he wins, wow, man, we could be talking about, right, now we're in a legitimate situation, maybe getting him back in with Fabio Woolley on a rematch or something like that next time out.
You think Adelaide's got the power to stop Hrgovic?
Yeah. That's his biggest asset, isn't it?
Yes. You kind of swaying me now. You talk me into it. But I just think stylistically, Hrgovic. I mean, I want Adelaide because he's one of our guys.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm just saying it.
So do I. I mean, I like David. I want him to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is I really do think that the big factor in this is Adam Booth. I think he makes a difference, and I think he gives David that extra dimension that possibly he hasn't had previously. But he talked at great length about the disappointment in his performance against Jamie TKV, because he said that David took this fight lightly in his own mind, felt that he had got the measure, he got the measure of Jamie TKV, and he didn't have to extend himself. He doesn't think that about Hrgovic, so you might see the best version of David Adelaide arrive at this time. Spence, I want to come back to you and talk to you about Nick Ball. He's the only British male world champion we've got at this moment in time. He's in a fight with Sam Goodman. Despite my protestations about wanting to see him fight against the other belt holders, this is still a good fight, isn't it? And Nick Ball's still a fascinating fighter to watch.
Absolutely. Listen, Nick Ball, I think, he wants those challenges as well. He wants to be boxing for those other belts, but this opportunity's come up. And here we are. Sam Goodman's undefeated Australian boxer, 20 fights, 20 wins, 8 of those by KO, but has only boxed at super bantamweight. This is a huge step up in class to move up in weight against someone as ferocious as Nick Ball. Like he's got a tough job on his hand as Sam Goodman, and you'd expect Nick Ball to come through this one and come through it quite comfortably. And obviously, the fight that we all want to see is that Inoue fight. I think there's been talk of that, coming over. He's just actually turned up over here, Nick Ball. He must have heard me mentioning his name there. He's just on the ping-pong machine or the football machine over there. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity for him to just keep going. TJ Donaghy, the last performance was a great performance. Narrowly got away with getting disqualified in that one, but come through with flying colours. And there's big fights on the horizon. I expect him to get the job done against Goodman, who's a tough fighter, though.
Absolutely. I mean, where are you on this Inoue fight? I'd like to see, I know he's in a recess, but I'd like Nick Ball to go back and deal with Ray Fargas because I think he was absolutely robbed. Obviously he went and beat Ray Ford there and afterwards and sort of righted that wrong. Yeah. But he should have 2 belts now. I mean, everything seems to lead to Inoue. I feel that's a step up for Nick Ball, a bit too far, but I don't know what you think.
Listen, regarding this at the weekend, I agree with what you said at the start there. There's fighters in this division that have my mouth watering at the prospect of Nick Ball fighting. The likes of the Stephen Fultons, who's just come up and he's become champion. You've got Shushu Carrington, who's the interim champion over at the WBC. These fights get me excited as a boxing hardcore fan. This at the weekend, I think Sam Goodman, he's maybe slightly out of his depth, but it works because they've managed to put him in a decent ranking with the WBO, even though he's been fighting in the weight divisions below. So he's stepped up in weight, they've boosted him up to number 4. It looks good on paper. The lad's never fought outside Australia. I don't think he's got the power to really trouble Nick Ball. Nick Ball, as long as he's taking it seriously and he's switched on, I think he'll look spectacular at the weekend. Regarding Inoue's coming up in weight, man. And at some point, he's going to go too far with the weight, isn't he? Now, don't get me wrong, is it this weight division? I don't think it is. I think Inoue is a sensational talent. He's technically absolutely outstanding. And for Nick Ball, the opportunity to welcome Naoya Inoue to the division, I think is an absolutely fantastic fight. And if that is the reason why we're having Sam Goodman now before we get to Inoue at the back end of the year...
It's an end to the means.
I'm all in for it, mate.
Oh, fascinating times. So after having the death knell of Boxer announced, I suspect, by Queensberry and Matchroom, we've seen Ben Shalom talk about his new broadcast deal. Rather than me talk about it first, let's have a listen to Ben Shalom talking to talkSPORT last week.
We have signed an exclusive free-to-air partnership, so we will still be doing our pay-per-view events and the bigger, sort of marquee events where you have to charge.
Gotcha.
But the same events that we've been doing free-to-air for the past 3 or 4 years will now migrate onto the BBC. So you are talking the biggest and the best names that we have, and it's very exciting.
And the ones who can't make the big cards and that sort of stuff, that now there's an opportunity to get their names out there, isn't there? Especially on BBC.
I think when you look at the sport, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have held it up for a very, very long time, and they're still sort of fighting here and there, but coming towards the end of the career. You worry about who's the next star, who's the household name, and you have a lot of talented fighters not being seen, not being built in the same way those guys were, and therefore not being able to carry the sport in the same way. This opportunity gives the next Anthony Joshua, the next Olympians, the next guys that want to make their name in their first 10, 15 fights to be seen by millions and millions of people. And I think it's those guys, it's the guys that want to be the next Anthony Joshua, the guys that want to be the next Tyson Fury, before they naturally will migrate as a pay-per-view star. The quickest and the best and the fastest and the most powerful way of becoming a household name is on primetime television.
Yeah.
Now, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been listening to various people talk about the perceived demise of Boxer, and that was the end of them and all the fighters that are going to leave. Now, I knew Ben had done a deal with the BBC quite some time ago, so all I'd been pushing back and saying was wait and see. And of course, if he signed fighters only on the basis of them being on Sky, then he's going to lose certain fighters, because if that was a contractual stipulation, then more fool him for doing that, because his primary function was to provide a broadcaster, right? When you hear him talking about the BBC, a legacy broadcaster, irrespective of the challenges that BBC might have or might not have, right? It brings probably the biggest audience, possibly. When you look at this as a deal, are you excited by it?
Yeah, This is fantastic from a fan point of view, and it's also fantastic from a young fighter's point of view. I think it's going to appeal to maybe a different level of fighter. You've now got another option, haven't you? Where DAZN are obviously the guys with the money.
Sure.
That have Queensberry and Matchroom in their stables.
And Turkey Yellowshake as a shareholder.
Of course. Yep. So therefore they can offer relatively decent fight purses for people fighting on their platform. But if you're a young fighter coming through, do you want to play the long game? If you want to play the long game, then I think this is absolutely fantastic because you can have shoulder programming existing on the iPlayer where people stumble across you, you can tell narratives, you can tell stories about those particular fighters, you can fall in love with those fighters, and then you come back in on a Saturday night. If we're getting fights on BBC 2, BBC 3, absolutely superb with the undercards on the iPlayer. I think Benn might just have to realign his business a touch. He's in a really good position when it comes to elite female fighters with the Caroline Dubois and the Lauren Prices of this world. So I think that
how does it work for the Ben Whitakers of the world?
So it's great for them to be able to boost their profiles and become mainstream stars. And with all due respect, it also gives them an opportunity for after boxing what they're going to do. You know, you've got your Strictly Come Dancings, you've got your Master Chefs and all these types of things that then become appealing to these people.
We're not going to sell that to a young fighter.
No, but they might have hopes, dreams and aspirations after the game to become, you know, to continue their careers elsewhere. But I think if he realigns in male boxing, I think if he realigns and concentrates purely on British title fights as his main event, I think he could be in for an absolute treat. Because if you're Saturday night, you're sat at home, you're flicking through your channels, BBC's there, there's a bit of boxing on here, boom. I think it's a
Does
really
it work
good
for
thing.
Ben Whitaker, though, who's perceived to be, irrespective of the challenges he had after the Liam Cameron fight, the first one, he's still perceived to be the superstar in the waiting, another British fighter?
Well, what does he want? What does he want? Does he want money now, or does he want to become the guy?
Don't they?
But does he want to become the guy, of which could be, I mean, the money could be astronomical in 3 years' time if he's on the BBC for 3 years, couldn't it? I know that he attracts big sponsors now. I think he's got an Adidas deal and all those types of things.
Audley Harrison, that's what I remember when it talked about the BBC.
Yeah, well, that would have thought, you would have thought that would have burnt the BBC's arse a little bit.
But if you remember then, they allowed Audley to pick his opponents, right? You cannot do that. The matchmaking's got to be right. That's why I'm emphasising British title fights, because 9 times out of 10, you always get a good title fight, don't you, when you're fighting for the Lonsdale belt. If that's their main events on these shows that they're going to be putting on, I think they're on for a winner.
Look,
what's your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you my thoughts in a minute, but let's have a listen to one of his biggest admirers, Eddie Hearn, have a view on it when he was talking to Kugan Cass's grotty mob.
Not every show has to be a big show. We actually received a tender because the BBCs are obviously publicly funded. They put a tender out to do the production of the deal. I was actually going to go for it because I thought it'd be quite amusing. But it's 4 shows a year. Terrestrial broadcast is great for the sport, But the problem is they don't pay any money. So it's very difficult in the industry and the world that we live in, especially at the moment with Riyadh season, to pay the fighters the contractual money or the money they want without having significant rights fees. So, but from a sport level, it's really good because, you know, it'll do decent numbers, it's good profile, and any time a new broadcaster comes into the sport, it's great for it. So I think, yeah, I think if you're a fighter, it's like great, yeah, good numbers. I want the max. What am I getting? If you can't make the big fights, if you can't pay the money, you're off. But I don't know. You know, maybe they've got some investment. Maybe I don't know. But you're going to have to go some to keep the fighters. But I think, you know, I think there's a few fighters that, if available, we'd be extremely interested in.
I think, like you, I think there's a raft of opportunities. I think it's also got challenges. He's going to have to pivot off his business model because he's been having Sky throw £8 million a year at him and a raft of other opportunities that the fighters themselves have created by their interest in being on Sky. And he's got to rethink it. But I think if you've got an opportunity to get eyes on the prize with a legacy broadcaster, you take the longer-term view and you build other parts of the business around it and you create other opportunities for the fighters to get monetised. Yeah. And you don't just deal with the here and now and you get the balance right. And that's for Ben to be, I think, better organised in some of his thinking as well, because I think he's opened the door to having his backside handed in a few times by Queensberry and Matchroom, which is not surprising because they've forgotten more than he's known, because they've been around much longer, in the same way that perhaps Mickey Duff and Terry Lawless forgot more than Frank Warren knew at the time. And Frank then became the dominant force as a result of his experiences. But I think anything that enables more boxing to be shown in different environments for different reasons creates different pathways. And I think it's for Ben to master this particular pathway, to utilise it. He doesn't have the uncertainty and the nature of Sky's relationship. He has a different relationship. And so, you know, you might find him needing to make sure that the Benn Eubank fights generate certain amounts of revenue that can fund certain aspects of what he's doing over here. But a lot of people were forecasting his death and the death knell of boxer. And I think the more decent promoters, however young they are in the curve and however much they need to learn, is all part of the ecosystem of boxing. And that's a good thing. And I think the more we see fighting and the more boxers are getting opportunities, the better the sport is for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that what you've just said there about pivoting his business model, forget about Eddie Hearn, forget about...
Yeah, you're not playing with them right now.
You're not playing in their league right now. Let them crack on making these super fights, whatever. Get the business model right. Like I said, if he just purely concentrates on those British title fights, gets a few of them over the line, gets 4 of them on mainstream TV, I think he could be on for a right winner.
Absolutely. Spence, I think you're back with us. I mean, you've heard the announcement about boxers signing with the BBC and all that goes with that. You know a lot of the fighters that will be signed to Boxer. How do you think they'll be feeling about this new broadcast opportunity?
Well, it's definitely an interesting opportunity for these fighters, isn't it? Because it is not just BBC iPlayer that Benn's doing this multi-fight year deal with. It's also on terrestrial TV as well before Saturday match of the day. So there's going to be a huge audience there, and the fighters obviously want to box in front of a big audience because big audiences make superstars. So I think it's an interesting time for sure. And the BBC, and interestingly, I think the BBC are going to put a pay-per-view sort of modelling in this as well. So that is something else that can be looked at. So there is big opportunities still there for these fighters, and it's interesting times for sure. And it's pretty good to get terrestrial TV back in there, and I think the fighters will be, I think they'll be pleased enough about that. I think they'll be intrigued for sure.
Well, there's talk, isn't there, of the first fight potentially likely to be for the British title between Jamie TKV and Frazer Clarke. That's a good fight for it to start with, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think they're talking about that happening maybe September the 27th. The rumours are circulating. That's when it could be going out, and that's a great fight. I mean, you know, heavyweights is where it's at, isn't it? And if that goes on Saturday night before Saturday night football, they're going to get a huge audience. I think there's going to be a 2.5-hour show when they're doing them as well, and it goes on out on iPlayer as well. So yeah, there's going to be eyes on it, and I think that's what boxing needs to make superstars. You need the audience, and they're certainly going to get that.
Here's one for you, just to jump in on that, what Spencer's just highlighted there. And this is a key thing, and one of my big bugbears in people putting fight nights on. Main events, 9 o'clock, 9:30. For the audience that's sat at home, let's not have main events at 11 o'clock, 11:30 or whatever it may be. If you've got them going at 9 o'clock, that's far more appealing for the audience.
Absolutely. And it depends if you're positioning them, I mean, with due respect to the audience, I'm not trying to diminish the boxing audience. If you're positioning it coming into match of the day on a Saturday night, you've got an audience that's there already potentially waiting. So there's a raft of opportunities. Another opportunity that seems to have presented itself now and reignited itself is the rematch between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. in November at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Are you happy with this, Adam?
Mate, listen, when we the first fight was really good, right? And nobody can deny that it wasn't really good. I think it was the coming together of so many fantastic things. It was like a WWE script. You just couldn't script it the way that everything came together in the fight. Absolutely.
Cheats, you know, fathers being re-involved in people's lives, all of the scripting,
Everything, right? And I just thought, off the back of it, it felt to me that boxing got away with one a little bit. Because I had a lot of pre-fight reservations regarding weight, and obviously Conor coming up in a couple of weight divisions. You had obviously Chris cooking himself down to 160 in the rehydration. And I just thought, right, we've got away with it now. Both guys have actually come out of this with a lot of stock risen. Let's get cracking. And I thought that Conor, I genuinely off the back of that fight thought he can go back down to 147 here
and beat someone like Barrios.
After what I've just watched with Barrios and Pacquiao, I think he can give him a really good go. And I thought that maybe, right, Chris, from watching the fight, he's won, he's come out of it. I thought it's time to go to 168 now and really push on. Do I understand why we're here? Of course I understand why we're here. It's dollar. That's what we're here for. Absolutely. From Chris's point of view, I just think to myself, he's won the first fight. He's made all these in the build-up. We were talking about weight. We were talking about rehydration clauses, and I was a big supporter of him in that and making those noises for him. But
Why? I mean, why? Because
from a health point of view.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he didn't have to have a rehydration clause. He took £1 million bonus for that. He could have ignored the rehydration clause and forfeited the £1 million and still walked away with 6 or 7 million.
Of course, and even more so this time around, I'm like, listen, he's a grown man. He's made his own decisions. If he's not bothered about it, why should I be bothered about it? And as far as I'm concerned, that's the stance that I'm going to. That I'll take this time around. There's still the same reservations from my own personal point of view about this particular fight. But like I said, he's a grown man. And
big enough to control his own destiny, yeah. What did you think of the first fight, Mark?
The fight itself, the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was tremendous. Great fight. Yeah. Good fight. I was worried, I was not concerned, none of my business, but, you know, it was a concern, the weight difference and all of that. And, not surprised they're doing it again
because of the commercials.
On the both account they gave themselves.
Yeah. Were you surprised? Was any aspect of the fight surprising to you? Were you surprised? Because people seem to be registering a large degree of surprise at Conor Benn. I always thought that Conor Benn would be game. I didn't like the fight. I didn't like the fact that everyone's trading off everyone else's name, and it was turned into this big nostalgia trip, and all of a sudden everyone bought into it.
Nostalgia sells stuff.
And I get it, absolutely. Otherwise, no one would be watching Oasis with due respect. We've all been something else now, right? So I get it, right? But were you surprised with Conor's performance, for example, in terms of how much he brought it to Chris?
Yeah, I was made up for him. I was made up for him. How he dug in and bit on his gum. I was also made up for Chris as well. I was made up for both of them. Made up for both of them for the account they gave themselves.
Yeah. The conclusion.
See, I'm mean-spirited, Adam. I think it's the least they could do. I know that's really. Yeah, I know that's me being a mean-spirited. Putting gloves on. But I sit there thinking all the noise, all the reward, all the trading off the wonderful legacy of your two fathers. You've got to have a fight. It's the least you can do. And we turn it into, they did put a fight up. I'm like, well, no, so
that's what they're meant to do. That's what they're getting paid for. So they delivered.
It was super entertaining. So I can understand why it's going to sell. The audience are going to come out once again. From a Eubank point of view, let's not forget he missed weight.
Sure. He took his 250 grand final, whatever it was.
Right. Yeah. He's missed weight. He's had the rehydration situation. He's gone, with all due respect, life and death with the guy that's a welterweight. He's come through victorious, and then he spent an awful lot of time in hospital off the back end of this, right?
Yeah.
I'm only just speaking of me as a human being. There wouldn't be a price on earth for me to be able to sell that again and go again for that. You know what I mean? To put that health at risk.
Yeah.
Because there's bigger things in the world for me.
So I'm being a bit... Because I can't help myself, and I don't mean to be mean-spirited. It feels like a lot of that's curated to be able to create the interest. And people are going to say, well, hang on a second, you've never done anything yourself, so you don't know that, but he's been in hospital for a week, you don't know what he went through. And I look at it and go, well, it can't have been that bad, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it again. And one of the things that really involves... And I tell you why, and it's me being relatively blunt speaking, but might be unpopular. I had Anthony Yard in the studio, and I want you to listen to what he had to say, because he talks about the fights that he's had and fighting for world titles, which is in part my problem with Eubank versus Benn. But let's listen to Anthony Yard and what he had to say.
For me, it's being the best version of myself. You know, there's no pressure on me, because I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. Don't care what you think. I care about what I think of myself, and I'm ambitious. So I want to win a world title. I don't want to be known as a guy who almost done it, or the guy with just courage. Yes, I've got all them things. Yes, I motivate people from where I'm from or whatever. But for me, it's bigger than that. It's opportunity, and this is why I work so hard. I've always seen myself as someone that's catching up. You know, I started boxing late, had basically no amateur fights. So that's why my mentality is just
See, what he told us in the studio last week was, I want to win a world title, and I'm going in against the best in class. I fought Kovalov when he was the best in class in his particular time. I've gone in and fought Beterbiev. And I think, Spence, that there's a lot more credit from my mind's eye, because Anthony said I could get more money for fighting other fighters, but I want to win a world title. And I don't know if I'm being a pious purist, or there's something of real merit in that.
No, absolutely. There's something of real merit in that. I think that every fighter, as a young kid, you'll dream always of becoming a world champion. You know, when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age and you started out as early as I did, the dream was about the Olympics and winning world titles. Money didn't come into it then. The business side of it didn't come into it then. And he sort of got those morals, Anthony Yarde, who started boxing very late, no amateur experience, but has always dreamt about, you know, succeeding as a world champion and defying the odds in many ways because of that lack of amateur pedigree. And he's, you know, he's gone in there against Kovalev, like you say, in 2019 in Kovalev's backyard and losing that fight. And inexperience lost him that one. In that 8th round, he had him going and just couldn't finish a job, blew a gasket. And then against Artur Beterbiev, who was pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. And he had his moments in that fight as well. Now he goes in against David Benavidez. And you just look at that and go, there's no more difficult route into winning a world title than that one, trust me. But Yarde has always dreamt about winning the world title. And he says, listen, the money comes after that. But let me do that first. Chris Eubank Jr., you know, he sees it slightly different. He's got his dad's name. So that's the big, you know, that's the big push for him straight away. That puts it up there. So he's sort of like, you know, he's a businessman first and foremost, and he sees the opportunity and he's getting huge money for certain fights. So I understand both sides of the coin, if I'm honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I like Benavidez. I liked him at super middleweight. I think most of us think, as much as you can say about Canelo Alvarez, that he avoided that fight with Benavidez. The question is, has Benavidez carried the power up to light heavies? How do you rate Anthony Yarde's chances? Is this his best opportunity to win the light heavyweight title, or are we diminishing what David Benavidez brings to bear?
It's a different type of challenge, but I'm a big fan of Benavidez. You know, he's such a big, long lad, but his feet are really good.
Yeah.
And I think when you've got feet like he's got, it's very, very difficult to be able to land the amount of power that Anthony Yarde has. Listen, Yarde's game, and he'll absolutely go there and try and win the fight.
Yeah, Yarde's game. He's young, he's got life, and he's strong. He's strong as a bull.
Yeah.
Not like not a lot of wear and tear either.
No.
You know, there's a little bit going back to Dillian.
He's been managed really
a little
well.
bit wear and tear with Dillian. You know what I mean? But sorry, I've changed the subject here. But no, Yarde's strong. Ambitious and desire,
and I like
and
that.
Hungry.
Yeah, I like that.
Hungry.
Yeah, I like
so
that.
he's got all he's got all them elements that not everyone has.
And he's got the ability to deal with Tundi, which is no feat either, is it? Right, that's it for episode 133 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan. Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Mark. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.